Everybody in the country illegally is subject to being deported.
We need people to come in here, but we need people to do it the right way. You just can't do it on your own terms.
We're a country of law and order. It's not chaos here. Go somewhere else for that.
The problem with the Iran deal is not whether or not they're complying, but the fact that it's a bad deal.
It really does not achieve the objective.
We now know that Russian bombers got just 36 miles off the coast of Alaska for a second night in a row.
This used to be commonplace during the Cold War.
UC Berkeley has forcibly canceled her lecture.
No, I'm definitely giving the speech. What are they going to do, arrest me?
They canceled it because they don't want to hear her.
We may disagree with people, but the thing on our side, we don't use violence.
We need more free speech, not less.
It's a father desperate to save his child, dropping that infant out of a second-floor window in Georgia, where you can see the firefighter below opening his arms, catching that little boy, saving his life.
Down in Decatur, Georgia, gives that firefighter the Employee of the Week award after that heroic catch of the child who was thrown from the second story of that house that was on fire.
I think the Braves should bring him down to the new stadium and have the opening pitch go to him instead of tossing it.
I have worked with you now for a year and a half almost, and now he's rubbing off on me because I started to think like you.
Right. I think that's a scary thought for you.
Yes.
I wouldn't tell too many people about that.
I know.
I think it's going to hurt your career.
I'm watching like serious news stories and finding a joke in them.
Right. I think that's it's hurt me a lot. Now it's going to hurt you.
Steve, how did you avoid it? 20 years together.
He doesn't listen.
It doesn't come out. I think but I edit. All right. Meanwhile, Michelle Malkin, the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV.com, is joining us live today from somewhere. It looks like the Rocky Mountains behind you.
Yes, it is 4:20 here in Denver, so if I'm a little bit more mellow than I normally am, you know why. It's the secondhand smoke.
We do indeed. Your first book, called Invasion, was all about immigration, illegal immigration. The Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security are going to be down on our southern border trying to tighten things up, making sure that the people who come into this country don't come in illegally. But what do you make of this dreamer who's become the cause celeb of the mainstream media, that young man right there, 23-year-old Juan Manuel Montes? Everybody's going, hey, he got deported, he had status, that's not fair. What they don't include is the part of the story that apparently he went back to Mexico without telling the government, which you can do if you're a dreamer, if you get permission, and came back into the country, broke the rules. Now he's in trouble.
Yeah, well, this is Open Borders fake news because USA Today, which vaulted the story into the media stratosphere, got it wrong. He wasn't deported. His status granted to him by Obama by executive fiat expired because, as you say, Steve, he gave up that status when he broke the law again. And here's the thing. The Trump administration and Jeff Sessions are finally making it clear to the millions of people who are here illegally that our laws on the books, and there are copious numbers of them, I documented them thoroughly in Invasion in 2002, are not a cafeteria menu. You do not get to pick and choose which ones to follow or not, and then get all up in arms when you're finally caught and the law is enforced.
You know, so interesting seeing General Kelly as Homeland Security Secretary, the first non-lawyer. He talks like a law enforcement person, and he just almost dares you to put politics into his philosophy. He's like, I'm worried about drugs, I'm worried about terrorists. Any problems with that, change the law. I love it.
Yeah, that's right. One of the big myths of the Open Borders propaganda machine, and of course it is that machine that keeps vaulting every one of these so-called dreamers into the public eye to milk and gain sympathy and emotion. What they don't understand, of course, is that there's no such thing as a quote-unquote otherwise law-abiding illegal alien. They're breaking tons of laws to get in here. You know what bugs me? When they call themselves undocumented, most of them have many documents, fake documents.
Yes.
And these are not just, we're not just talking about civil infractions. Well, you know, we shouldn't touch them because, of course, they're here contributing and giving so much to the country. Well, each and every one of the DACA and DAPA beneficiaries under the Obama administration program and scheme were given work documents. These are work documents for people who are replacing Americans whose jobs are being taken from them. These are people who have stolen social security numbers. These are people who are violating a plethora of laws. And finally, the Trump administration is drawing the line, and that's why you're seeing such a hue and cry from an industry that has benefited from exploiting millions of people.
What's interesting, too, about that case is the guy broke the law, according to Customs. He was charged with theft. And then he leaves the country, tries to come back in illegally, and now he's suing the government. Does he have a case?
I hope not. But the problem is that so many illegal aliens have been granted status by liberal courts across this country. It's not just a problem with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. It's at every single level. And that really is one of the hidden problems that I talked about in Invasion, is the entire immigration court system, which is populated by left-wing progressives who don't think our borders matter.
There you go. Meanwhile, I think we're at day 91 or day 92 of the Trump administration. And the Media Research Center put together a little montage of all the tough questions Barack Obama got in his first 100 days. Feast your eyes on this, Michelle.
This morning, a new dawn, a new face from a new generation.
We've got Barack Obama as our president and Michelle Obama as our first lady. We're all immensely proud.
I think he's off to a good start. I was blown away by President Obama's grasp of the subject.
He just wanted to let the American people know, I'm on the job, I'm doing what you elected me to do, and I've got a plan.
He's had more success in this first 100 days than I expected.
During these first 100 days, what has surprised you the most about this office, enchanted you the most about serving in this office, humbled you the most, and troubled you the most?
Now, let me write this down.
How crazy is that? So during his first 100 days, it was a real honeymoon with the press, whereas with Donald Trump's honeymoon, it's more like a knife fight.
Yes, that's right. Good lapdogs. I mean, the salivating and the panting and the hyperventilating in that clip alone, it just makes it worth it. I love what the Media Research Center has done over so many years. Accompanying that, of course, they had a report that they put out yesterday talking about the massive, disproportionate negative attention that Trump has gotten in his... Right? 89% negative. And this just shows you how agenda-driven the Beltway Press Corps has been. I pointed out, of course, in the first 100 days of Obama, that by that 100-day mark, what you didn't hear from those liberal media lapdogs was that he had an unprecedented number of turnovers, withdrawals of corruptocrats that included Bill Richardson and Tom Daschle, whom Obama had nominated for cabinet positions. He had filled less than half of the positions needed to gain approval by the Senate, and he had a Democratic Senate majority. But no, instead you got some enchanted evening questions from the journalists.
But I would say this. The president's been very slow in filling up his slots that don't need a nomination. He wanted to get repeal and replace in place. It's not. He wanted to get $1 trillion incentive plan out there to stimulate the economy. It's not there. But he does have Judge Gorsuch there. He can point to hard and fast improvements when it comes to the border.
Jobs.
So yeah, and so far the economy seems to be pretty strong. So it's a mixed thing. You can honestly, you don't need to be a cheerleader. You could be an analyst and ask good questions.
Yeah. That's right. It is certainly a mixed bag. There are a number of obviously, the Obamacare 2.0 Rhino Care debacle is a stain over the past 100 days. But most of my quibbles are with the speed rather than the direction. And the success of Gorsuch getting through his nomination process is huge for conservatives and cannot be discounted. And then his continued commitment to the #1 issue that he campaigned on, national sovereignty and immigration. I don't have complaints, again, with the direction of where he's going as opposed to the speed.
Right. Michelle, I think during your appearance so far, I have heard 2 words I've never heard before, Rhino Care and corruptocrats.
Right.
And you still have 2 minutes left, just saying.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
All right, Cole Webster, tell them to make some additions. investigations, or the Sniglet attorney. Do we have a Sniglet attorney?
I don't think they have an attorney yet.
I don't know what you're talking about. All right, while we have 2 minutes left, let's talk about what's happening at UC Berkeley. They've banned Ann Coulter from going there to speak. They gave her all these rules saying you can talk at night. No, you know what? You can talk during the day now. Make sure the kids are in class, or make sure you only talk to kids. And then they finally said, for your own security, we're going to cancel it. She says she's going to speak anyway. What's your reaction?
Well, if she were an illegal alien, she would have been embraced on campus, and Janet Napolitano, the former DH secretary, who's now the chancellor of the UC system, would have granted her an honorary PhD. But because she's a conservative, she's a pariah. I spoke at Berkeley in 2004. They had to chain the lecture doors while all of the free speech advocates outside were banging on that door and yelling shame for my entire one-hour
What do you mean?
lecture. So very little has changed over the last 13 years.
They chained the doors closed for you?
Yes, and I had a ring of both Berkeley Police Department and campus security protecting us the whole entire time. There is no safe space and safe bubble for conservatives on college campuses. And really the bottom line here, and I need to hear it more and more from parents, particularly Fox viewers, is that they're finally going to take their money and run and stop subsidizing these propaganda machines that ostracize people who express political dissent. These people do not believe in ideological diversity. They are not about the search for truth. They can't handle the truth. And the only kind of enlightenment that appears on the Berkeley campus is from the Molotov cocktails that these people toss at conservatives when they dare to come on to their safe spaces.
Well, when Milo was out there and there was, there were demonstrations and there were fire Molotov cocktails, President Trump tweeted the next day, if UC Berkeley does not allow free speech and practices violence on innocent people with different points of view, no federal funds. That's what the president wrote.
Yep. That's right. Defund liberal nutball campuses. I'm all for that.
And real quick, what story are you working on right now?
Oh, gosh, I've got so much going on at CRTV.com. We've got a very incredible story on the Muslim rape refugee crisis, a two-part series on the Gold King mine spill, which was engineered by the Obama EPA, for which there have been no consequences. A lot of investigations that we're digging into at CRTV.com.
No wonder you're up so early. Thanks, Michelle.
Take care.
All right, coming up straight ahead, we have a lot more show to go, 44 minutes. Why did he do it? This morning, the suicide note that former Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez left, and what was on his forehead, we'll explain.
Plus, is the Supreme Court headed for another major shakeup? The big news that just broke, coming up next.
The family of disgraced NFL star and convicted killer Aaron Hernandez demanding answers about his suicide.
His legal team vowing an investigation, saying his death simply does not make sense.
All right, Fox 25's Jessica Reyes is live in Boston with brand new questions this morning. Jessica, this isn't an open and shut case, is it?
No, it's not at all. There are still so many questions left unanswered this morning, and those who knew Hernandez personally, they say they just don't think it's possible that he could have been suicidal and that all of this just does not add up. Authorities say he was found hanging from a bed sheet in his cell early Wednesday morning. Authorities say he didn't leave any type of note behind, but had the words John 3:16 written in marker on his forehead. In the Bible, that verse reads, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." Aaron's friends and family members say this is completely out of character for him and are not convinced that this was, in fact, suicide. His attorney, Jose Baez, is now vowing to do his own investigation, saying there's, quote, absolutely no chance he took his own life. An autopsy was done here at the medical examiner's office in Boston yesterday, but at this point, the findings of that have not yet been made public. Live in Boston, I'm Jessica Reyes. Back to you.
All right. Thank you very much for the live report from Fox 25 in Boston.
The backdrop of a top-rated tight end, former Patriot, goes on trial and kills himself the day the Patriots are going to the White House after winning another Super Bowl. That could have been him. He signed a $40 million contract and decides to be a thug instead.
Unbelievable. So many kids would love to have that opportunity.
Right.
Terrible story.
All right, coming up, who's leaking Hillary's secrets? This morning reports that she is on a witch hunt.
Wait till you hear that. And he's the best deal maker in the world, so why can't the president get Obamacare replaced? Bob Massey says it's politics. He joins us live from Vegas to explain why it's not the president's fault.
All right, some quick headlines now. The Trump administration vowing a complete review of the controversial Obama-era Iran nuclear deal. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson slamming the agreement as failed approach to the #1 state sponsor of terror. Here's what it sounded like.
An unchecked Iran has the potential to travel the same path as North Korea. It is another example of buying off a power who has nuclear ambitions. We buy them off for a short period of time, and then someone has to deal with it later.
So Iran's foreign minister just responding on Twitter saying this: worn out U.S. accusations can't mask its admission of Iran's compliance with the JCPOA, obligating the U.S. to change course and fulfill its own commitments. And a country in crisis as opponents of Venezuela's current president launched the so-called mother of all marches, killing at least 5 people. General Motors now halting operations after its plant there was taken over by government authorities. Protesters calling for more political opposition as citizens of the socialist country starve their country's economy, and their economy actually tanks.
It is tanking. Brian, thank you. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill in this country, despite a major push from the president, lawmakers could not reach a deal to repeal and replace Obamacare. You know that. Well, now it seems Americans are losing hope the president and Congress can work together. Just 46% say they are confident it is possible for the president to work effectively with Congress. That is down from 60% in December when we all had such high hopes. So whatever happened to compromise, and have members of Congress forgotten what they were sent to Washington to do? To answer that, Fox News legal analyst and the host of The Property Man, Bob Massey, joins us live from Vegas, baby. Good morning to you, Bob.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing okay. So when you look at that poll, in December, a lot of people had high hopes that the new president would go to Washington, and given the fact that he had a Republican majority in both the House and the Senate, they would get stuff done. And yet, as we saw with Obamacare, that simply didn't happen because the Republicans were not all on the same page.
Pretty poor commentary on our system. We have to remember this is a legislative process. They are supposed to, Congress is supposed to legislate and make laws that are good for us. We have such a polarization, Steve, that this thing is out of control, and it's very disheartening for all of us Americans who wanted a movement. If you take, Steve, let me tell you, if you take this situation, put it in a private enterprise business, the business would be bankrupt because nobody could work together, the business wouldn't grow. Couple things. First of all, besides the Obamacare, there's 2 things we need to happen from my world in the real estate area. One, the Mortgage Debt Relief Act expires in June of this year, which could be major impact on people in this country who still have homes, haven't been foreclosed on. 2, capital gains tax has got to be lowered. These are the type of things that these people have got to work together and understand they're there to work for us. In this polarization, Steve, it's got to stop because people are really, really upset in this country on all sides.
Absolutely. You're not the only one who feels that way. But, Bob, look, the Democrats, all they've got is the no. And they don't want to help Donald Trump, who's now the president of the United States, get stuff done. They want to be able to say in 3 years, hey, he didn't get anything done. We need somebody new who's a Democrat.
I think that we're in a situation, Steve, I think the Trump movement started a trend in this country to say, look, we're going to hold you people accountable. And if it ends up being that the Democrats have drawn a line in the sand and not willing to compromise reasonably, and if there are some, as you know, former Tea Party people that are too far to the right that don't allow it, you cannot have it all. You cannot have it all. That's why it's a legislative process. It's a mediation process. It's a give and take. I worked back in D.C., Steve, in the 70s. I was very blessed to work in sort of in a senatorial aide position and learned a lot. They used to sit down and work things out together. They would sort of figure it out. I was a volunteer through a college course in school. It was a wonderful thing to watch. All we see now is this acrimony. How in God's name are these people representing us unless they come to some good conclusions? We're frozen in time. It's going to affect us. And what we need to do If they do it in 2 years in Congress, just keep going out and voting until they get it right, because this is not right for the American people.
Well, famously, back in the 80s, after your tenure in Washington, D.C., when Ronald Reagan was President of the United States, he'd sit down with Tip O'Neill at the end of the day. They'd go have an adult beverage or two and talk about what they would do together. And neither one of them got 100% what they really wanted ultimately on their bucket list, but they wound up getting 70 or 80%. And that back then was a wild success.
Oh, you could have differences and then you could have resolution. The problem today is, Steve, they have differences and they don't want resolutions. They only want resolutions if it's their resolution, not a compromise resolution. And we don't have a compromise resolution. You have exactly what we have. Frozen in time, nothing getting done, and a lot of upset people in this country. And they better be careful on both sides, because the American people have had it, man. It's percolating. Right. They're not going to see it again. I'm telling you, they've had it. You hear it, I hear it, and I'm sick of it.
People want stuff done. All right, Bob Massey, you just heard part of his resume you didn't know before. He's now the property man, and his show is going to be tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern, over on Fox Business Network. Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.
You bet. Meanwhile, ask Democrats why they lost in 2016, and Hillary Clinton isn't their only answer anymore.
Barack Obama could have been a better party leader. And I think that the fact that he wasn't has put his legacy in jeopardy.
Wow, now they're blaming President Obama? Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry is here with the never-ending D.C. blame game. Hey, Eddie. Plus, is the Supreme Court headed for another major shakeup? Big news. It just broke overnight. We'll explain it to you straight ahead.
Can I just... I think I got this, but thank you. Maybe. All right, thanks, man. I'll see you in a minute. All right, that was cool.
Great.
Democrats have a brand new theory about why Hillary Clinton lost the election.
DNC Deputy Chairman Keith Ellison says President Trump wouldn't be in the White House if Barack Obama was a better president.
Wow, this is the liberals search for a new message and try to find a way to get off the mat. Chief Washington correspondent Ed Henry is here to join us. And Ed, this is all based off that book Shattered, and then people are commenting on it and denying it.
Well, it's caused a lot of controversy, but even before
You're in it, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I haven't read it yet.
The White the Server, that's a big part of it.
Well, what's interesting is even before this book came out, right, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Nancy Pelosi was asked by CNN, who's the party leader right now? And she stumbled, didn't name herself, didn't name Chuck Schumer, said, well, President Obama and Hillary Clinton, they're still kind of the leaders. Really? Well, Keith Ellison, who ran for DNC chair, of course, and was endorsed by Bernie Sanders, which is interesting because Ellison lost, and it said the hand-picked Obama-Clinton pick, Tom Perez, the former labor secretary, got it instead. Remember, there was an event a couple of days ago where Perez was being introduced, I guess, and he got booed. And they were saying, Bernie, we want... The energy is still with Bernie. And Ellison, who is back with Bernie, says this about Barack Obama.
Barack Obama could have been a better party leader. And I think that the fact that he wasn't... has put his legacy in jeopardy. We lost a lot of state house seats, governorships, secretaries of states. His true legacy is in danger, and I think that he can't say that he wasn't part of those losses. I mean, who else?
So here you have a senior Democrat referring to the fact that there are over 1,000 state and federal seats all around the country, state legislatures, Congress, and you see the numbers right there, pardon me, including 62 seats in the U.S. House lost on Barack Obama's watch, and there are now Democrats speaking out saying he should have done more.
Some more Democrats are agreeing with him.
Yeah, they're now saying that where was President Obama in terms of helping them elect at the state level? That's why they now have a weak bench.
Sure, but what about the fact that given that Tom Perez is now the head of the DNC, and many regard Barack Obama, who lives a couple miles away in Calorama in Washington, D.C. now, is secretly pulling the strings.
As the shadow president. Yeah, and meanwhile, the hand-picked former Obama cabinet person in Tom Perez, who was a big surrogate for Hillary Clinton, is the DNC chair, not Keith Ellison, who's raising these concerns. I think the bottom line, there is still a sort of Clinton, Obama versus Sanders wing of the party, and they're still battling it out here months after the election.
70-something-year-old Bernie Sanders has a 65% approval rating amongst Democrats. So if you think the success is close, so you want to be, that's why the whole party's moving to the left, which I don't know gets them election victories, although they feel hardened about, believe it or not, what happened in Georgia.
And that's why they're desperate for a win. They didn't get Kansas, they came close. Georgia, they came close again. There's a runoff, so the Democrats could still win that.
Meet you in Montana. That's the next thing they want to fight.
I'll see you there. Oh, not me?
Yeah.
Hey, when you were in the White House, in the press room, did you ever see anything like Roger and Kelsey
There
coming
would
out?
be Super Bowl folks and baseball folks that would come in.
And offer to do the
But not offer to do the briefing. I actually think Sean Spicer, love you, man, but you missed an opportunity here. I was at the Yankees game last night talking to a couple friends. I hadn't seen that video, and they told me about the video, and they said, why didn't Sean say to Gronk, hey, could you deal with these guys? I have a hard time with them. I'd like you to straighten them out.
Mr. Gronkowski, a question about North Korea.
If Gronk had come up to the podium and basically said, I'm not taking your question, John Roberts, or whatever.
Hey, that's a dumb question.
It would have been awesome.
The first thing you would have to do if he's going to be in his game mode would be rip off his sleeves.
Right,
and that would have been
Saturday
interesting.
Night Live with the, roll out there, Melissa McCarthy, I'm going to beat everybody up. You get Gronk out there beating everybody.
He just pick up the podium himself. Who's got the first question? Oh,
missed opportunity. Missed opportunity.
All right.
Well, we might see it again on Saturday Night Live.
they
might do it as a skit.
Good seeing you guys.
Thank you. Good to see you too, Ed.
All right, now it's time for some news, and Abby's got it today.
Good morning. Good morning, Ed. Always good to have you here on the couch. Yeah, I do have some headlines to bring you, starting with rumors that are swirling of a Supreme Court shakeup. Chuck Grassley, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, saying that a justice could resign as soon as this summer. In an interview with an Iowa paper, while Grassley did not name a justice, the oldest on the court are Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Anthony Kennedy, and Stephen Breyer. This as the High Court shows support for religious freedom in Judge Neil Gorsuch's first blockbuster case. The debate centered around using taxpayer funding to upgrade a church's playground. The church arguing the playground is open to the public during summer months. We'll see how that plays out today. And the knives are out. Hillary Clinton's team reportedly searching to find the person who leaked details on her failed presidential campaign. Authors of the bombshell book Shattered, they say they spoke to more than 100 insiders to get details from election night, like her phone calls with President Obama.
She picks up the phone reluctantly, and she walks away from the table where she's been talking to her aides, and she steps into a room, and as she's stepping into the room, she says, Mr. President, I'm sorry.
Well, according to the New York Post, Clinton went on a similar search when she lost to Barack Obama back in 2008. And some shocking video this morning catching the horrifying moment that 3 people firebomb a home with the family is sleeping inside. A surveillance camera in Texas showing the front door engulfed in flames before the suspects take off. Luckily, a neighbor alerting the 4 people inside of that house. All were able to get out safely. The suspects also torching the SUV in the driveway, still on the run. Unreal. Well, liberal filmmaker Josh Fox, who tweeted that only love will stop ISIS, now challenged to back up his words. Conservatives already raising more than $2,500 to give him the opportunity to, quote, hug ISIS, saying this in quote, the fundraiser will pay for Fox's airfare to Afghanistan, 2 nights in a hotel, and a dozen roses so Fox could show ISIS how much he really loves them. So far, no response from Mr. Fox. We will keep a close eye on that one, see how it plays out.
So his version is love would stop ISIS, and during the Obama administration, it was jobs.
Right.
Jobs, jobs, jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
Not sure those are the answers.
I don't know.
Not for me. All right, thanks, Abby.
Abby.
All right, 22 minutes out before the top of the hour. Coming up, recognize this adorable baby? Well, me either. It's the first time seeing this picture, but suddenly it all makes sense. It's Carly Shimkus, and she brought her parents in. That's a special thank you for giving birth to her. Some quick headlines now. Tennis star Serena Williams pregnant. The pro athlete sharing the news online with this picture. It's captioned 20 weeks.
Halfway
now
there.
let's do some math. That means she was pregnant when she won the Grand Slam title at the Australian Open in January. That's unbelievable. A mascot to the rescue. This is another story. The mascot's name is Albert, the Florida Gator, using his nose to shield a young boy from a foul ball. Oh. Good job, Albert. The boy then jumping into the action, giving Albert a fake CPR.
It didn't break his nose either.
Right, see that? All right, that's quick. That's the fun stuff. Now the real stuff. When you talk about enemies to America since 1979, one-stop shopping, Iran.
It seems to be like that. When he was running for president, Donald Trump said that the Iran nuke deal that the United States entered into a year or two ago, the worst deal ever. Mike Pence said, if elected president, Donald Trump should rip it up.
Yeah, it was a terrible deal. One part of that deal that we all had a problem with was they said, Iran said, you know what, America, you can come and you can inspect our facilities to make sure we've gotten rid of the nukes. But you have to give us notice, and I think it was about 3 months' notice you have to give us. Just enough time for them to get rid of it themselves.
So what happened is the deal released the sanctions, unfroze the funds, and allowed the rest of the world to start dealing with them. And then the back end, for 10 years, they had to shelve their nuclear program. After 10, they could start legally making nuclear weapons. Secretary of State Tillerson says, yeah, they're abiding by the deal, but it's a bad deal.
It really does not achieve the objective. It is another example of buying off a power who has nuclear ambitions. We buy them off for a short period of time, and then someone has to deal with it later. We just don't see that that's a prudent way to be dealing with Iran, certainly not in the context of all of their other disruptive activities.
Okay, so what are we going to do? The United States government is going to start a 90-day review. Then they're going to decide whether or not to continue the deal that was entered into with a bunch of other countries. Also, the President of the United States, I think in a couple of weeks, is going to decide whether or not to continue with the way it is right now. Keep in mind, the sanctions were suspended. They were not revoked, which, in other words, if we decide they're not living up to the deal, he can just sign away his name, Donald Trump. Next thing you know, sanctions are back.
Iran's foreign minister tweeted this out this morning. Worn out U.S. accusations can't mask his admission that Iran's compliance with the JCPOA, obligating the U.S. to change course and fulfill its own commitments. The question is it true that we allowed them in this deal to shoot off intermediate-range missiles? Is it true in this deal that we didn't even bring up their terror activities throughout the region? Yes and yes.
Unbelievable.
They could be complying and still doing this. They're still harassing our ships, forcing with those fast boats while we're in the international waters. Nothing has changed. They are laughing at us.
Yeah, you're right. It reminds me of what's happening in Syria when Assad said, yeah, I'll give up my chemical weapons, and then here we are. We all saw the pictures of the babies.
But when they called him to congratulate him for winning the presidency, Angela Merkel of Germany and Vladimir Putin of Russia, two parties involved in this negotiation, they both said, hey, Mr. President-elect, keep the deal.
Yeah, we got some business interests there now. We got some reasons for our economy to profit off that relationship with the terror-laden nation.
All right, are y'all hungry?
I am hungry every day at this time.
All right, well, good. Because Carly's going to be cooking. Do you recognize that baby right there? It is our own Carly Shimkus. Isn't she so cute?
Right.
Still is. And she brought her parents in to cook cake. Her grandma's cake. That's for breakfast.
One of her parents needs to be spoon-feeding her that, like in the earlier...
That would be easy. Open the doors, and then she got teeth. Nice. But first, let's check in with Bill Hemmer because we promised him we would.
We're spoon-feeding you the news.
Okay, right on, guys. Good morning. Global hotspots, you were just talking about them. They are big today. Russian jets buzzing Alaska. Will Team Trump force Iran into a better deal? Mike Huckabee on that. Do both parties need to worry? Karl Rove makes that point. We'll look at the numbers. 100 days later, what does the White House have to show for it? And are your headphones spying on you? See you in 12 minutes, top of the hour.